Hey everybody, this is Gregory from Dapp University. So in this video, I want to talk about the top industries that can be disrupted by blockchain. We're going to talk about the problems that blockchain can solve in these industries and how it could potentially affect them on a massive scale. So before we get into that, be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already and click the like button down below. And as always, you can download my courses for free at my website over at dappuniversity.com/free download. So let's talk about the top industries that can be disrupted by blockchain, right? I'm gonna give you a quick blow-by-blow overview of the types of industries that could be disrupted, and then I'll talk about, individual problems in those industries and how they could be solved by blockchain, right? So I'm gonna pull this report up here. These are some statistics taken from a report put out by Deloitte that surveyed that 95% of the companies on the survey were using blockchain technology, and this gives you some feedback about how they think that blockchain is going to affect different industries. So here's some of the top industries that they think blockchain is going to disrupt. First one is automotive, oil and gas, life sciences, financial services, consumer products, healthcare, technology, food, and other, right? And then also public sector is the bottom. So here's another article with a few other industries. So banking and finance, supply chain, energy, identity, real estate, government, international trade and commodities, healthcare, media and entertainment, and sports. So it's several industries. I'm gonna give you some interesting use cases about how blockchain can be used within these industries and how they're actually gonna solve some problems. So generally speaking, what can you do with a blockchain that's actually gonna give any kind of benefit to these industries, right? So what are some of the benefits of blockchain? Well, the first one is, trustlessness, right? You can do things on the blockchain without having to trust a central entity. That's what the blockchain becomes for you. It becomes the intermediary, right? You can write smart contracts on the blockchain that do things for you, like a vending machine that execute digital contracts, right? You can automate things this way. You can remove middlemen, and let computers do stuff for you that you used to need, public officials or central businesses to do. Now you can do it with a computer instead, the global computer on the blockchain. Also, blockchains are decentralized, so there's lots of benefits from that. Even another benefit that a lot of people aren't considering is reduced infrastructure costs. If you could use a public blockchain to, manage some of your computational overhead, you could just reduce infrastructure costs entirely or offload some of them, right? I'm sure you could reduce your AWS bill a little bit if you just let the blockchain do some things for you. And another big benefit is security, right? That's a big concern for a lot of companies. And this report here talks about how 84% thought that, blockchain would provide more security than traditional IT systems. All right, so let's talk about kind of all those things and how they fit into these specific industry use cases. So the first industry is banking and finance. And this is no surprise. A lot of people already associate this with cryptocurrency, but what are some of the problems that are faced inside this industry, right? Compliance, payment, you're not sure if funds are going to clear, if a check's going to bounce. Settlement, it's usually slow, it takes a long time for that check to clear your account. And also cybersecurity, right? How many times have you heard of bank accounts getting hacked, right? Identity being stolen, stuff like that, right? Blockchain can really help a lot of these problems. So how? Well, for one, if you relied on cryptocurrency instead of transferring fiat currency from bank to bank, right? The transaction's instant, basically. I mean, it takes time for, the transaction to be confirmed and mined, stuff like that, but it's way less than it would take for it to clear your bank, right? And also the transaction fees, they're not relative to the amount that you're sending, right? You could send $1 million of Bitcoin and it costs the same as sending $1 of Bitcoin, right? And the amount of time it takes for that transaction to clear is marginal compared to, how long it would take that amount of money to clear a bank account. And also cybersecurity, right? So if you are transferring that kind of money and you're able to manage your own funds and manage your own private keys, and you know how to securely store crypto funds, you don't have to worry as much about cybersecurity as if you would, if you had a username and password on some central server somewhere for a bank. That's a much worse failure point because it's managed by a third party. Those systems have vulnerabilities and stuff like that. So now let's talk about supply chain. What are some of the problems that affect the industry? Well, inefficiency, tracking is bad. Sometimes, people in the supply chain are dishonest or even exploitative. So you could automate some of these problems away with smart contracts, right? You can make sure that things move through the supply chain as you expect, that when it reaches a certain checkpoint at a certain amount of quality control, that those conditions pass before it moves to the next checkpoint. And if they didn't, it gets recorded on the blockchain, right? There's a lot of opportunity here to integrate with Internet of Things devices, that you remove humans from the equation vision, right? You could basically just have sensors, right, that measure a lot of these things and verify that a certain standard was met, or that things were recorded before it moves to the next checkpoint, right? Or that sense temperature was the same throughout the entire supply chain if you're transporting food. There's lots of different opportunities here, right? And that's how you could get computers to talk to one another and talk to smart contracts on the blockchain and implement business logic to make sure that things are working the way you expect. And at the end of the day, whenever the final product arrives to you, you could have data about every point in the supply chain, and or at least have a better idea that data has better integrity than maybe if someone tampered with it or something like that. All right, the next big use case is identity. So how many times do you hear about people having this identity theft problem, right? Or data hacks? Well, the blockchain can help you manage identity in a new way, right? You wouldn't necessarily have to maintain ID documents that could be stolen. You could have a digital representation of your identity on the blockchain that's managed by you, right? And it's going to be much more secure because, the blockchain uses cryptographic hashing mechanisms that make it much more hard to spoof data and much more hard to hack things and things like that, right? And that's going to give you a huge bonus when you're talking about identity management on the blockchain. And also there's this idea of self-sovereign identity where basically, you can guarantee that you are you and you don't need some sort of third party to verify your identity. And this can have lots of implications for moving across borders and stuff like that. The last industry and big use case I want to talk about today is real estate. All right, this is a big one because real estate is a massive, massive, massive industry that could be crazily disrupted by blockchain, okay? So what are some of the problems with real estate right now? Well, some of the problems with real estate right now are that it's kind of inaccessible and you need a lot of different people to basically make real estate transactions happen. You need a realtor, you need, a bank, you need a title company to transfer ownership, you have to deal with public records, you have to deal with, loan officers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? How could blockchain solve some of these problems? Well, it could remove the need for some of these middlemen in a real estate transaction. Like essentially, I could just transfer you the deed to my house with a smart contract and it would be mine, right? I could just pay into that. And as long as I paid the amount and met some other conditions, you could just transfer the deed to the house programmatically without having to worry about all this other stuff, right? And then probably realistically is some sort of compromise in the middle where there are some middlemen still and some parts are automated with software and blockchains, right? But that's a way that you can reduce some of this inefficiency, right? And think about it, it's the perfect combination of public records and payment, right? Which are two other industries kind of merged into one. Public records to manage the deed to the house and, finance with cryptocurrency, right? Basically paying into this. I'm sure there's ways that you could also incorporate loans into this where basically you have a smart contract for the loan, you have a smart contract to get the deed to the house and it's held in escrow and things like that, right? There's all kinds of ways you can do this programmatically. It would get very complex, but the potential is there for this problem to be solved by blockchain. All right, that's an overview of all the industries that can be massively disrupted by blockchain, okay? And at the end of the day, it's really about opening up new possibilities, right? So going back to this report, out of everyone surveyed, 28% of them said that they expect blockchain to open up new revenue models, so new possibilities, new use cases. So this is a really exciting time for this technology. I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes. So if y'all like this video, again, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already and click the like button down below. And as always, you can download my courses for free on my website over at dappuniversity.com/free download. And until next time, thanks for watching Dapp University.